almost ready. Got to take our socks off, then we'll be ready. You get to page 19. Come on, man. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamanatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Hari Vijagacharya Astatarasata Divine Grace Easy Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Looking around the room and considering the nature of our theme, always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. This presentation that I originally put together for college students, kind of like introductory, don't know so much about Bhagavad Gita, etc. audience. And even at a Sunday feast program, it's a different audience still. This is a different group. So some of you have already seen this. I'm looking around the room and I know that several of you have seen this presentation. So I'm going to take it in a different direction. The principle doesn't move, but the direction can move. There's the conventional use of the term mindfulness these days. I don't know if you've noticed it, but since I was asked to speak on this topic, I've been noticing it. It's quite pervasive. It's in the media. It's becoming a little bit tired already term, mindfulness. Mindful eating, I've seen it quite a bit. Mindful walking, anyway. Something that Prabhupada expressed on more than one occasion, it struck me and went deep, and it's been with me since I've heard it. When you have a goal, very clear sense of goal, then it's very easy to take steps to get to the goal. And the converse is also true. If you don't have a clear sense of goal, it's really difficult to be determined and focused on getting there where you don't even know where there is. Or you're not clear yet what the goal is. And so he would ask, what's the goal of life? And we should ask ourselves what the goal of life is, and then the means to get there becomes reasonable and clear, and remaining determined to make those steps to get there. So the goal of mindfulness, or the goal of life, is what the purpose of the Vedas is. The purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. So to know Krishna and our relationship with Krishna, it requires the means to get there. The bhakti process, the art of mindfulness, the conclusion of the art of mindfulness is pure devotion. In one of the Sanatana Goswami's writings, titled Brihat Bhagavatamrita, the approach was taken slightly differently. It was intended as a commentary of sorts, a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. So part one of that very large, sits on your shelf this big with all the purports, commentary. Who is the greatest recipient of the mercy of Krishna? It's a quest literature where Narada Muni is on the quest to find that person. And many, many, many persons he goes to, one after the next, after the next, after the next, after the next. Who he said, no, no, not me, not me. But this other person, so he keeps going, and finally the conclusion is the residents of Vrindavan. They have the best mindfulness. And tomorrow evening for the Sunday program, I plan to give examples of that, the residents of Vrindavan. Because their minds are, in the highest degree, highest possible degree, fixed in Krishna, in love. Because where the mind goes is what you're attached to. What you're attached to at the time of death is where you go. From Bhagavad Gita, yam vapi smaran, remember, smaran bhavam, the mood of what you're remembering, chachatente kalevaram. At the end of life, whatever you're absorbed in, whatever your thoughts are absorbed in, The mind carries you to that destination. It's the simple machinery. There's the subtle machine, the mind, intelligence and false ego. There's the gross one, the body, gross body. When the gross body is kaput, finished, the subtle body carries you to the next gross body. Whatever the mind is fixed on, that's where the soul is carried by the subtle body to the next situation. And it's true not only at the time of death, it's true from moment to moment, and it's a true principle of life. So where the mind is important. In yoga practice, it's important. In life, it's important. And the perfection, the art of mindfulness is the standard of love, attachment for Krishna that the residents of Vrindavan have. That surpasses in intensity and in quality the love of all the other associates, of loving associates of Krishna. The intensity of the love of the residents of Vrindavan. And similarly, Krishna's feelings and his mindfulness of them. It's a two-way street. It's a reciprocation of love. So that's the goal. That's the goal that the chanting of the holy name, gifted to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is meant to take us to that place. Krishna Loka in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. That's the gift. That's the goal. Receive the gift. Be in a relationship with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and associates so that you can receive that gift. And that's the art of mindfulness. So it's beginning with the goal in mind. For those of you that are really new, maybe it's not so clear what I just said. For the rest of you, it's pretty clear. That's receive the holy name and exchange with the holy name in such a way that the gift of Goloka is what we receive. Residence, eternal residence with Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan in a loving, serving mood. That's the goal. And begin with the goal in mind, and that's the art of mindfulness. Not bad. So the conventional use of mindfulness is something quite different. But our theme is, I'm switching, this whole presentation around a whole bunch as I'm speaking now. The conventional use is just a reflection, and even a perverted reflection, largely centered on either one of two things. Either sense gratification or mental speculation. The art of mindfulness with eating is, rather than stuffing your palate, you're mindful of what it is that you eat. You're discriminating about what you eat. You're mindful about what you eat, and you're mindful about the eating process itself. It's not for gluttony. It's giving nourishment to life so that you can carry out duties, to do the work that's needed. And so if you're depending upon your field of activity, if you're a health person or an athlete person or a whatever it is person, you want to eat mindfully, that's going to help you do what your project is, your worldly project. Or you have a health problem and you want to maintain your health, so you're mindful about what you eat. You follow a strict diet because it's good for your health. But in a broad sense, the mindfulness means be present instead of being absent. Be present with each of the things that you do. Mindful walking. I've seen it in media of late. I just happened to notice it because of speaking on this topic. Mindful everything. The mindful manager, the mindful That's the reflection. It's not the goal. But for those that don't know the goal, the reflection becomes the reality. Mindfulness so you can feel better, look better, smell better, live longer, have less pain, win instead of be, mediocre, be the best athlete. Anyway, so it deals with what the mind does, mindfulness, and I want to go to the other thing, besides sense gratification, because these are the two main options besides a life of devotion. The two things that Rupa Goswami teaches us, now I'm speaking very differently for this audience than the college group or the Sunday feast group. There are two things that Rupa Goswami instructs us to reduce or minimize or do without: sense gratification, mental speculation. Anyavilasha shunyam jnana karma janavratam. Yes? Karma, fruitive activities. What's the purpose of fruitive activities? To get fruitive results. What's the purpose of fruitive results? Sense gratification. Yes? Fruitive activities to get fruitive results, to get sense gratification of different descriptions. And then the other is jnana, speculative enterprise. So the speculative enterprise of mindfulness finds its place in Buddhism, and that's my sense of where mindfulness comes from. So please allow me to take you on a little tour of Buddhistic mindfulness. It's not too difficult. I learned this from Jiva Goswami, and it's written in Tattva Sandarbha, where those of us that have been devotees for a while know that when Shankaracharya appeared, it was after Buddha appeared. Buddha appeared in India, and we hear over and over again, Shankara drove the Buddhists out of India, and they went to the Orient. They went to China and Southeast Asia and Japan, because he was strongly against Buddhism. And what Buddhism did was rejected the Vedas. So if you reject the Vedas, you don't know what the goal is, because the Vedas tell you what the goal is. The goal is to know Krishna. The goal is the absolute truth. The absolute truth is Krishna, the source of everything. Right in Bhagavad Gita, the goal of the Vedas is to know Krishna, and Krishna is known through devotional service. You reject the Vedas, their goal is gone. But one thing for sure, nobody likes to suffer. Say it the opposite. We like to be happy, or at least peaceful. So Buddha's teaching says, keeping it simple, the root of suffering is desire. Solution: become free from desire. No more suffering. That's the goal. No more suffering. When you reach that state that's no more suffering, it's got a nice name. Nirvana. The goal of Buddhism is nirvana. A simple definition of nirvana is cessation of material involvement, or cessation of material implication, cessation of material activity, cessation of material existence. Nada in Spanish, nothing, right? Or nothingness, the state of nothingness. What's the goal? Nothing, or nothingness, nirvana, because what you did is you just got a path that gets you to a place where suffering ends. Because the root of suffering is desire, you have to remove desire. Well, that's a problem. Because desire, if you read the Vedas, desire is of the soul. So how do you remove desire? You have to anesthetize the soul. Anesthesia. Then you don't feel anything. They can cut you up and all kinds of stuff, and you don't, no pain, no suffering. Anesthesia. But when the anesthesia wears off, then there's the pain after the surgery. Anyone that's had surgery. Ouch. During the surgery, you don't, anyway, no pain, no suffering, no misery. So if, well, let's put it as a question. If desire is natural for the soul, then what's this nirvana state where it's cessation of material existence? Answer, it's like anesthesia that wears off. It's not permanent. It's impermanent. It's another temporary thing. Just like desire for something temporary is temporary. Desire for cessation of the temporary is temporary. You with me? Should I do it again? Everyone's with me? So, I'm a follower of Buddha, and I want to stop my suffering, and so I want to stop desire, because desire is the root of suffering. So what do I do? I try to be mindful. And one of the ways of mindfulness is you avoid passion and ignorance, and you spend more time in the realm of goodness. So passion influences the mind to make a plan for enjoying in the future. I'm going to work hard and make this plan and do these things and get the stuff I want and be the enjoyer of the stuff I want. Or maybe, good stuff, not the bad stuff. Environmental friendly stuff, but, enjoy. Make a plan to be the enjoyer of something and work hard at it. And the mode of ignorance didn't work. I'm lamenting and I'm sad and I get depressed and I start to take intoxications to wash out the sadness, and I thought she loved me but she left me, and now I'm woo 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 and singing the blues, and I'm in this other mode. Lamentation, darkness, destruction, moroseness, madness, intoxication, craziness. It's modes of nature. Suffering. So I want to spend more time in the mode of goodness mode. I'm not planning the future enjoyment and not lamenting over the past suffering. I'm in the moment. I'm in the moment. I want to be present. In fact, I think what I learned from Jiva Goswami is, although Shankaracharya drove out the Buddhists, I mentioned that, there was a group that was prominent during his time called Kshanik Vada Buddhists. Those of you that know Sanskrit, Kshana is a small moment of time. Kshana, pratikshana svadhana lolupasya. It's a fraction of a moment. And the Kshanik Vada Buddhists teach there's no such thing as consciousness. Because there's no such thing as the soul, there's no such thing as consciousness. And what we think of as consciousness is but divided into small little pieces. It's a series of moments. The argument goes like this. A moment ago, I saw a blue object, so there was blue consciousness. But that moment is gone, and now there's a yellow object, so now it's yellow consciousness. And all life is, what we call consciousness, is but a series of moments. So be in the moment. That's all that's real, is the moment. So be in the moment. Be mindful of being in the moment. And you practice at that. It's hard because the modes of nature are pulling and pushing the mind. But be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. For what purpose? Go beyond the moment into what's really real. What's really real is nothing. Nirvana. Cessation of even the moment. That's nirvana. And then no more suffering, because you're beyond suffering. You're beyond even the moment. And you're beyond desire, because there isn't desire anymore. Because it's all a big mistake, desire. Because all there is nothing. Pretty bleak, huh? Exactly as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. What's that verse? Oh. Krishna says one has to go beyond several things. Forgetting the verse, sorry. And one of those things is frustration. Vita raga bhaya krodha, there we go. Vita raga, bhaya, and krodha. Krodha, you know, those of you that have been around. Krodha means anger. Anger arises when a desire is frustrated. Just like a child, I want whatever it is. And if it's detrimental for the child, the parent will say no. And what does the child do? Throws a little tantrum. I want. Right, Yasodananda? Yes, Marge. So you try to give them another little something that rattles, or something that glitters, or something that whistles, and their attention goes there and they forget the other thing. It's a trick to help them let go of the attachment to having something that's detrimental to them. But when desire is frustrated, it leads to anger. The Prabhupada explains very clearly, these philosophies of nirvana and becoming one with the Supreme, it arises out of frustration, krodha, desire that's not fulfilled. But if you reach this stage, this is nirvana. Please understand, there is no such thing as nothingness. I'll say it again. I'll say it in a positive way. There are two things, Prabhupada's statement. There are two things. There's Krishna and there's Krishnas. And there's not a third thing. There's not void in the creation of God, because void means where there's nothing. There's no such thing. There's a state of anesthetized consciousness where you're in this state where consciousness is so covered. It's deep sleep. You're not aware of... Anyone that's had anesthesia knows what I'm about to say. There's no sense of passage of time. When you're awake, there's a sense of passage of time. And it varies. When you're enjoying, you're having fun, time just flies. And when you're waiting for a bus or waiting for something that's important, it takes forever. Time passes differently according to even in this body. And then when you're asleep, time passes differently. But at least when you wake up, time has passed. But when you have anesthesia, there's no sense that time has passed. It's as if time goes slower and slower. So this nirvana is like that. But when anesthesia wears off, because even in the anesthesia state, it's just covered consciousness, but it's not zero. Nirvana is a so-called state of zero-ness, nothingness, voidness. It doesn't exist. It's anesthetized consciousness. It's not happiness. It's anesthetized consciousness. It's not bliss. It's anesthetized consciousness. So, according to Bhagavad Gita, we'll get to it in just a moment, there's a description of samadhi, because this is always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. That's samadhi. But the samadhi state can be this nirvana state that's just preliminary. Read Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, Dhyan Yoga chapter, verses 20 through 23, and it's very clear. nirvana is a preliminary state, and then what's on the other side of nirvana? The question for nirvana, folks, is what's on the other side of suffering? For us, it's what's on the other side of nirvana. Like, what do you do? When you're in this nirvana state, or you're in the neutral to material existence state, what do you do? What's it like, Alfie? You twinkle. Well, what do you do? So we engage in devotional service mindfully. And in the way of love for Krishna that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us, it's in the love of the residents of Vrindavan. That's what we do. And we cultivate that even when we're in the present body. We cultivate that even when we're in the present body. That's the art of mindfulness. And of course, you know, the mode of goodness is a good, it's a entryway into the spiritual reality. One of the opulences of this temple room is all the light that during the daytime comes through these windows, because not many temples have that opulence. And if there weren't the windows, you just have a wall. And so where there is a wall, you can't see what's on the other side of the wall. Or where the window, you can at least see what's on the other side of the wall. So the window allows you to see what's on the other side, and then you can go, being inspired to go on the other side. Like somebody was asking me today, what can I do to get inspired? When I'm with the devotees, inspiration. And then there's times that I'm not with devotees and I don't feel the same inspiration. So my answer was through sound, because through sound, there's full contact with Goloka. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. It's one of our great acharyas, Narottam Das Thakur, writes in a song. The holy name brings with it the entire spiritual world. The process of devotional service, to what we're doing right now, hearing the subject matters about Krishna and always remembering Krishna, etc. It's part of the spiritual world. That's the goal. That's the art of mindfulness. It's what's on the other side of nothingness. What's on the other side of cessation of material implication or involvement. What's spiritual involvement like? What's it feel like? What does it look like? What's the consciousness like? How do you live your life that way in our present condition? How do you cultivate beyond nirvana consciousness? I haven't read it yet, I just came across. Srila Prabhupada took sannyas from whom? His sannyas guru in Mathura, his name was Keshava Swami. Keshava Swami wrote a very detailed essay, which I'm hankering to read when I'm not so busy. It's Beyond Nirvana, or the other side of Nirvana, or something like that. Same topic, you know, very detailed. And he speaks about Buddha and Buddhism in detail. He speaks about our topic, always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna. The life of full devotion to Krishna. It's the art of mindfulness. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna saying the mind can be, this is Picasso's rendering of Bhagavad Gita. The mind can be your best friend or your greatest enemy. This is Picasso's depiction of the mind. And Shri Shri Kishore Kishori Ki Jai. So, conventional mindfulness of those who are interested in mindfulness and pursuing it is through meditation. And so I'm going to go through this very quickly because we have a different audience here than at a university. Meditation means different things to different people. One of the simple forms of meditation is just relax. Like, chill out your sympathetic and move into the parasympathetic nervous system. Like, relax. Systems that help your whole system relax. Or it can be directing your attention in contemplation of some activity that leads to meditation, leads to contemplation, or contemplating of spiritual objects or spiritual topics. And different techniques. This is one that I did, meditation technique, before I started chanting Hare Krishna, is candle meditation. I heard about it, tried it out, and I learned some things. I learned that but it's obvious, but when there's wind, the candle flame flickers, and when there's no wind, the candle flame is very still. So the idea in this type of meditation is to make the mind, exactly as Krishna says in verse 19 of chapter 6, when meditation is well developed, it's like a candle in a place where there's no wind. It's very steady, not flickering. Musical. Okay. However, life is not windless. Life has its varieties and categories of winds. Well, but it's a mechanical, Prabhupada uses the term, mechanical processes. And mandala meditation is another. This is a Buddhist system. You see some Buddhist monks over here setting up the mandala. And then they lean over and meditate on the different aspects of the mandala. It's a widespread practice in Buddhism. I've seen images where there's 6, 7 monks surrounding a mandala. They have these wooden sticks, and they're pointed at a certain place within the mandala, and they stay there for some time, and then another one, then they shift, because it's like teamwork, and then someone else is meditating, another one, and then by the end of the day, they've meditated on the whole thing, and then they see the parts together with the whole. So life is like that, parts, and then there's the whole. So it's to help make the mind still, even while the world is moving around very swiftly. Mindfulness. Chakra meditation, meditation on Om, some symbol, sound or a symbol, it helps fix the mind. This is an image from a photo journal submission. A freelance photographer did a photo essay for New York Times this summer, where he took the number 108 and he interviewed and photographed 108 yoga instructors who took yoga not just as something that they do for health, etc., but part of their spiritual practice. I mean, that was the inspiration for them. So the photos are the photos of the individuals, and then the interviews was, questions and their dialogue with the photojournalist. And my comment when I speak to the students is, I can't do this. And I don't know if anybody here in the room can do one of these. But to do one of these, it's not just, you have to have a supple, flexible body. You have to have a mind that's really fixed. I mean, you could maybe hold that for half a second or second or two, but mind has to be very steady. Some of you may know Prahladananda Swami, the sannyasi within ISKCON. Some are nodding yes. we went to college together, along with a lot of other people that joined from the same college. There were about 40 of us that joined, 35 of us and up that joined from the same university. It was an amazing time. So I've known him from the time we were both uninitiated devotees, long time. And he has many expertises. And one of those happens to be astrology. Another one happens to be yoga. In fact, he was sharing with me when he was visiting in New York once that he had just come from London, where he was requested to give a seminar to yoga instructors who instruct yoga instructors who instruct yoga students, who train yoga students. So he was very high level because he's regarded as having that skill. And then he explained to me because they wanted to know, are they doing their yoga instruction properly? Because they each have their different systems because they learned from a yoga teacher how to be a yoga instructor. So they wanted to check with him, are they doing it properly? So he explained that essential, whatever the methodology is the mind, because the mind rules the body when you do yoga properly. And then he showed me what he showed them. And it was largely disciplining the mind. Now, if you're going to chant japa, you also have to discipline the mind. If you're going to do any kind of yoga, you have to discipline the mind. You can't chant negatively. You can't practice yoga and not discipline the mind. You can't chant japa properly and not discipline the mind. But discipline is rule, and then there's something that goes beyond rule, and that's devotion. That's the goal. But discipline, you don't trash discipline. It's it's a mode of goodness step in the direction of devotion. So this fellow, he's got his mind fixed, and it's doing an amazing, I've never seen that yoga pose. But it's without service to Krishna. It's serving Krishna with bhakti. I don't think he's thinking about how this is an offering of service to Krishna. Just like when next time there's a kirtan, or you attend Mangal Arti, and you're standing before the deity. I was thinking this specifically this morning. It's one thing to sing the song, and it's an offering, it's a duty, but it's a regulative principle that helps us become elevated and purified and so forth. But the essence is more than that. The essence is pleasing the deity, just like those of you that sing kirtan. It's musical, and it's lively, and it's lovely. Either and or but. Keep going. And the greatest happiness is you're singing for the pleasure of the deities. You're calling Krishna's name, and that's very pleasing to the deities. You're dancing for the pleasure of the deities, anyways, etc. A life of devotion is whatever you do. So there's regulative activities, includes this powerful one of deity worship, or chanting of the holy name, or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, or serving the devotees for the pleasure of Krishna. That's the art of mindfulness. So this fellow, he's got a very concentrated mind, otherwise he can't do this. But according to Srimad Bhagavatam, you can look the verse up later if you like, these activities that are beneficial, specifically it mentions yoga, but there's many other beneficial, spiritually beneficial activities. Now this one's definitely a but. However elevated one may get, mind and otherwise, because the mind is infested with, as long as the mind is still infested with the seed of passion and ignorance, it's going to recede back to that previous position. The bungee cord effect, I call it. It's something, then it goes back. And we've all experienced that. Something, in colleges it's not uncommon. after class, one student or sometimes a group of students will come and say, I'm doing some meditation. By doing this meditation, I find that there's heights of consciousness that I was not able to access before. I didn't even know they existed. But I can't stay there after some time. So how do I stay there? Bhagavatam answers, bhakti is the means, and there isn't another one, because bhakti dissolves the soul's, it's beyond nirvana stage, beyond anesthetized desire stage. It's where the modes of passion and ignorance are eliminated, where karma is eliminated, where the original consciousness of the soul is restored. And that original consciousness of the soul, what's that? It's this position of love in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here's another of the photojournalist's images. He's a good photographer. Very peaceful setting, practically, if you can imagine at least, hearing the sound of the stream going by and sitting in a comfortable position on a flat rock, very peaceful, meditating on something. But if that something is not Krishna, it's not enduring, it's not permanent, it's another impermanent, peaceful situation. Then comes the storm. And how to remain peaceful even when there's tribulation. That's one of the topics. I believe Hemangi was touching on it also. And it's a topic I plan to speak about Monday morning. So here comes the rain, and it's splashing, and the surface of the water is disturbed. How do you remain undisturbed even when there's cause for disturbance? There's a Sanskrit term for it, so it exists. It's dhira. It's Krishna consciousness. So you can try to be detached and enter into this nirvana state, being neutral to the circumstances around you. But the Vedas give us that which Buddha dismissed or rejected. The Vedas give us this information of divine mindfulness. And our divine mindfulness is fix the mind on Krishna. And one of the best methods, particular for this age, is the chanting of the holy name, both kirtan and this mantra meditation. So I'm going to go through the rest quickly. This is for college students. Sound can smash glass, sound can kill people, sonic weaponry, sound can heal maladies, skipping the detail. And for us, there's spiritual sound. Material sound is powerful, spiritual sound is totally powerful. And even if you don't have faith in it, it's powerful. But if you have faith in it and take full shelter in that sound vibration meaningfully and mindfully, meaning devotionally, then the problems of distracted mind can be overcome. So anyway, this is the conclusion from the college presentation. We'll just go back. We're very fortunate. We don't even really yet know how fortunate we are that we've been rescued from who knows how many lifetimes of searching endlessly for contentment that's always elusive, and spirituality that's always elusive. But the mindfulness of being mindful of Krishna in his name, his form, his quality, his pastimes, it's being handed to us. Please take it. But we're not qualified. That's okay. Take it anyways. But I'm distracted. Yeah, I know you're distracted. Take it anyways. It's good for you. It's more than good for you. It's superlatively best. Well, now let me try. Okay, so we're in that situation. We're in this in-between nowhere and somewhere. And we're trying in our association together to become, at least with the attempt that in this presentation this evening, what's the goal? And to understand the merciful nature of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving us the spiritual world. Please take it. You have a place in the spiritual world. Please accept it. And it takes a while. It takes some cleansing. It takes some faith. It takes some spiritual effort. One thing we share in common, we don't like to suffer. And we want the other kind. We want happiness. But we want happiness that is not intermittent. Sometimes and sometimes not. Sometimes. We don't want that. I mean, it happens, but it's not what we want. We want happiness that's ever increasing. It's universal. Why? Because it's our natural position. So this, always remember Krishna, the art of mindfulness, where we can check our tendencies for searching for happiness in temporary things, but the greatest strength in checking those tendencies for happiness in temporary things is seeking the real happiness where it's not temporary. Seeking that art of mindfulness that's exactly like I like it, Brihat Bhagavatamrita so much. We're being taken on a guided tour. It's actually after Narada Muni finds the greatest recipient of the mercy of Krishna is the resident of Vrindavan, and Krishna says it. He says it to his queens in Dwarka. That ends part one, and part two begins basically. Sanatana Goswami says this was a warm-up. This was all just to get you ready for the real thing. And the real thing is Gopal Kumar, through chanting of mantra, getting the same realization, but passing through all the different phases of creation and the happinesses that are there, and the rationale about what the happiness is like at each place. I mean, Brahmaloka and Vaikuntha Loka and the place of the meditators and Maharaloka or Tapaloka. I mean, it's fascinating. But the great faith that Gopal Kumar has in the chanting of the holy name carries him to the topmost position, Goloka, and his eternal relationship with the Lord of Goloka, Krishna, Govinda. That's the art of mindfulness. And the others are directionally perhaps interesting and helpful, but not long-term permanent. We need to take whatever asset we have in those departments, apply them towards the ultimate one. If someone is good, I know some people that are really good at remembering things. I know some people that are really bad at remembering things too, but some people are really good at remembering things. Fantastic. Apply that capacity to those steps and the nature of Krishna in the spiritual world and his loving dealings. Apply it there. When I began the class, I was looking around the room thinking, how am I going to do this presentation for the audience that's here? So it was a little disorganized, my apology. I did some adjusting as I was going along. Any comments or questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You speak, he'll fix the volume.
Okay. This whole analogy of the mindfulness, right? To me, I'm kind of taking the knowledge from last week for Christmas, and there was a Prabhu who was speaking. He used the mountain as an analogy.
Yeah.
And like Krishna consciousness being the top of the mountain.
Yes, correct.
And scaling the mountain.
Yes.
And I was having these realizations, like, you know, maybe I didn't really realize how high I went. You know, I just kind of chant Hare Krishna, and now I look down, and you can't really go down anymore because it's too far of a fall. But then as you're going up, you know, you're struggling just to hold on.
Yeah.
Just to hold on, but it's.
So you're making a comment about something you appreciated last weekend.
Yes, but in some way, I felt like it was connected because you were saying, you know, the goal is Krishna, but the mindfulness is the reflection as we're getting there, and so that I feel like it's correlated.
Yes. Yes.
But I guess it was more so a comment of looking down and realizing that you can't really go down, you can only really go up, but going up gets difficult, you know, you're moving so fast and then you just kind of get stuck there.
Well, it's good that you feel you can't go back down again, but sometimes, you know, it's not unheard of at all. Sometimes people check out. Sometimes
I don't understand that. Yeah, I feel like you completely transform from the inside, like
here's what the Bhagavatam says. Sometimes souls try to forget. They may leave the activities and the lifestyle of Krishna consciousness, but they can't forget because it's inside.
Yeah, thank you.
It may take even, you know, another lifetime or more than one lifetime to get back, but they can't forget, it's inside. Mm-hmm. It's right in the Bhagavatam. Yes, in the back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. This might be a very, I don't know if this question is suitable for this. It's a very low-grade question, but I just wanted to know, how would you define consciousness and
How did what?
How would you define consciousness?
How do we define consciousness? That's a nice question. That's your question. How do we define consciousness?
It's actually a two-part question, but the first one is, how do we define consciousness?
Well, it depends if you're a scientist or a devotee. But we'll just do the devotee part. Jiva Goswami explains that the soul is both conscious and consciousness by using the following example. And I'm going to address I'm trying to address your question. Just like a lamp or a flame, it's luminous by nature, heat and light, and it spreads illumination and illuminates other things in the room. The Vedic statement is pots and plates. It's just to use, you know, the wall and, you know, stuff that's in the room. The light from the lamp illuminates other things. So it's luminous and illuminates other things. Similarly, the soul is conscious and consciousness. So consciousness now means to be aware to be perceptive of something or things. Consciousness is awareness of something or things. Now there's instruments of consciousness. There's the indriyas and the gyan indriyas. One can be conscious of object, one can be conscious of sound, be conscious of smell, one can be conscious of taste. So the gyan indriyas sort out varieties within the elements. That's a whole Sankhya topic, but conscious of, sound, taste, smell, touch, etc. So, but it's awareness of, being consciousness is being aware of. So Krishna consciousness is to be aware of the relation of all things with Krishna. I've over-answered your question. What's Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, thank you. And the small one, regarding it's from the presentation. Like you were talking about being in the moment, that concept of Buddhism about
That's what
being...
Buddhists speak about. Yeah.
Right, right. So I wonder how, what would be the relevance? Because the consciousness is also affected by history, right? By one may be very conscious right now, but if somebody starts mesmerizing or thinking about what happened in the past or starts being anxious about the future, then also the consciousness is affected, isn't it? Then, isn't the whole concept of being in the moment lost?
Yes. Therefore, if you're going to be a strict Buddhist, you don't spend time in the past or in the future. You spend time in the moment. So that's the converse of what you said. If you do those other things, you've lost the being in the moment challenge or assignment. You're not. You're in the past or in the future instead of in the moment. So and there's take it one more step. The purpose of being in the moment is to enter into the state of nirvana, to go on the other side of the moment. Because fundamentally, the assumption is, or the assertion is, that's reality. Enlightenment is nirvana. You're beyond the moment. But to get to beyond the moment, you have to be in the moment. You can't be in this passion ignorance thing. You have to be in the mode of goodness thing. And therefore, principles of goodness are parts of the eightfold doctrine of Buddha, at least Gautama Buddha gave. And it's basically principles of goodness, compassion, etc. Truthfulness. Religious principle of goodness. So that you can be in the moment, so you can go beyond the moment. You got it?
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, or you're still...
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Maharaj.
Okay. Up front here? Oh. Okay. But up front here, there's a few hands up.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
For the last 2 days, we have been getting one constant message, and that is a spiritual master, the importance of a spiritual master.
I didn't say it once, but go ahead.
And how does one identify a true spiritual master? And with the TV and the commercials and the internet, everybody seems to be very, very spiritual and very, very God-fearing.
I don't watch TV, but I can't imagine that TV is spiritual. It's appealing to, buy goods and services. It's sense gratification. It's commercialism, not spiritual. Okay, but your question is, how to identify a spiritual master? That's your question. Do you mind if I refer to Scripture? Because Scripture tells us. the answer to the question. There's some very basic points. One of them I just was hearing in a recorded lecture during lunch today. I was having lunch and listening to Prabhupada. From Bhagavad Gita, you can look it up later, 434. One of the a spiritual master must be for 1, 2, and 3. But spiritual master must be in disciplic succession. And Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam, he has heard. Shruti, Shrotriyam. He has heard from a qualified person in disciplic succession and has assimilated that understanding. And thus, the second, Brahma Nishtam. Brahma Nishtam, firmly fixed in the absolute truth. Such a person is fixed and they don't deviate from. And Upasamashrayam, the third qualification. Material affairs, material attraction is cast aside. Upasamashrayam. No more pursuit of sense gratification through fruitive activities. Those are three, one who has Shrotriyam, Brahmanishtam, Upasamashrayam. And they live their life, day in and day out, like that. The words that they speak, this is Prabhupada was saying this, I'm just hearing it today. Krishna says, surrender unto me, right, in Bhagavad Gita. And the spiritual master says, surrender unto Krishna. He's just repeating Krishna's words. And the goal is Krishna. That's the qualification. They just repeat, they don't interpret, don't twist, edit. They just take the words of Krishna and speak the words of Krishna and live the words of Krishna. Their life, their achar corresponds with their prachar. Their character and conduct corresponds with what they say. How's that?
The second question to that. After finding such a type of spiritual master, how does one qualify as a disciple to become that spiritual master's disciple?
Nice question. Well, this is 434 Bhagavad Gita. 3 things for having found such a person: pranipat, prashna, and seva. These are Sanskrit terms, but you know the meaning. Pranipat, submission. Prabhupada says submission means not making absurd inquiries and challenging spirit. Not whatever you say, I got my eyes closed and the answer is yes, whatever you say. Not blind submission, but not challenging spirit. And then prashna, you know the meaning. It's you have an inquisitive spirit. You'd like to know. And seva, when you hear the answer to the question you'd like to know, you're enthusiastic to live by it. You seva, you render service according to what you've heard. You mold your life around those pearls of wisdom that you've heard. That's the qualification of qualifying one to become a disciple of the spiritual master. Pranipat, prashna, and seva. 434, you can look it up later, Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so there's some enthusiasm over here. Put your hand up so he can see. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Can one have free will while surrendering to Krishna completely?
Can one have?
Free will.
You must. Let's say it negatively. Mm-hmm. You cannot abandon free will even if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Surrender to Krishna or not. Rather, surrender to Krishna means proper use of free will, fully exercised. Let's say it even stronger. You know how to swim?
I do.
Okay. You ever been in a river that's moving really fast? And so fast, even if you're swimming upstream, you're going downstream. The Ganges is like that. So, depends.
I've not swum in Ganges.
But I have the experience. It can be dangerous. So the current of Kali Yuga, the present age of mankind, is moving very fast downstream. And we're trying to move upstream. We're using free will to be surrendered to Krishna and Krishna's service. We can't be inattentive. We have to fully exercise our free will to be in a mood of surrender to Krishna against the tide that's going the other direction, away from Krishna. We have to be even more determined to exercise our free will carefully, consciously, fully, to not get washed away by the current of materialism that's strong. So the answer to your question is absolutely. Not only can you must.
Okay.
How's
One
that?
must have free will.
You have to. If you want to be surrendered to Krishna, it has to be a free will choice.
But nothing happens without the will of Krishna.
The sanction of Krishna. Not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna. But what his will is, you come to me. You go to Krishna. That's Krishna's will. And you can say, let me think about it. You can say, yeah, but I got 1 foot in the material world and 1 foot in the direction of you. Free will is operative. Krishna's will is you're with him. That's what he wants. Sarvadharmam prajaja mamekam sharanam praja. That's his will. Aham tvam savra papebhyo moksha yashami masuchaha. That's his will. And we're thinking about it. We're making some effort, more than thinking about it. But, can it be more than the effort that we're making? More of a free will exercise than what we're now free will exercising? He doesn't interfere with our free will. He has his will, but he doesn't interfere with ours. Otherwise, it's not free will.
But he sanctions our decisions.
Yeah. Although it's love. Otherwise, there's no love. We're forced. You better love me or else. And there isn't any or else. It's only one thing. No, it's free will. He wants our love.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Okay, up front here.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
With what you were saying, I'm trying to just understand it better. Is like seeking nirvana like going against Krishna, or is it just an unnecessary step to get closer?
It's not exactly either one of those. It can be against Krishna. It can be like ignoring him. That's not for Krishna. Just, like, supposing I just ignored you, or you ignored me, or, you're making some friendship over here with, just ignored him. Just from today for the rest of the time you're here, just didn't exist. That's not nice. It's ignoring Krishna, this nirvana thing. It's not saying you don't exist, but it's not saying that you exist. It's just ignoring him. In effect, it's just saying you don't exist by implication. I mean, ask a Buddhist, does Krishna exist? A person in this state of nirvana. They're just in the state of nirvana. What does exist? Void. Literally, nothing. In a state of enlightenment. You follow? So, it's a kind of negation. There's worse when it's explicit. And there's a group of people that say Krishna doesn't exist. Those are, you've heard this term floating around here, and they're impersonalists or Mayavadis. You've heard that term? Those are those people. You've heard a term? No, Mayavadi?
I haven't heard it.
Okay, it's a new breed, new species. They say it doesn't exist. So, yeah. In fact, it's the opposite. There's only one thing. There's Krishna and Krishnas, and there isn't something else. So, okay. Any more on this topic? Are you good?
I'm still trying to understand it more, because
okay.
I don't understand why, like, all of those steps, like, that they take, you know, like, if it's like, I mean, like, it's kind of confusing because Buddha is right there. I mean, like,
sure. Oh, he's one of the avatars of Krishna. He's not a bad guy.
Right. But I just don't understand, like, what's the point of reaching nirvana if it's just like, I understand that it's nothing, but like...
it's cessation of suffering. The gift is cessation of suffering. And to promote the cessation of suffering is compassion. That's the mode of goodness. There's transcendental compassion, but there's a mode of goodness compassion. That you do good things and you don't harm other people or other living entities besides people. You don't harm animals. You're kind to other entities. It's a mode of goodness. It's a good teaching. Mode of goodness is good. And what's beyond the mode of goodness? It's nirvana for the Buddhist, and for the follower of Krishna, Buddha is an incarnation of Krishna. He did something for a certain reason. What was that reason? People were taking the Vedas. There we go. They're taking the Vedas and twisting the meaning of the Vedas to say it's okay to slaughter animals, and in the name of the Vedas they were slaughtering animals. He said, forget that. I reject it. Is that what the Vedas say? Then I reject the Vedas. So we rejected the Vedas. That's not what the Vedas say. There are people that are misusing the Vedas in the name of the Vedas to slaughter animals. So he just rejected the Vedas. But there was a purpose behind his doing that. It was to get people to stop animal slaughter.
Right. So basically, he ignored Krishna to serve Krishna.
Yes. And the message of Krishna, which is the Vedas, that tells us what's beyond nirvana, what's the spiritual world. Now, it was to help people at least get to the position of compassion. And that's good, but it's insufficient. So your question, when you initially asked your question, was the little steps to help one get to the position of, and it can be, but not, it can be little steps to get one closer to the position where one can take shelter of Krishna, but it may not also. Your heart may get very hard. You sit and do that for a long enough time and your heart can get really hard. Like, not soft to Krishna and soft to Krishna's part and parcel living entities. in the higher sense of what's in their best interest. You with me? Okay, good. Okay, yeah, 2 more questions, we're going to end.
Guru Maharaj, this is disciplining the mind. By the mercy only we can understand that I and this mind are separate.
Okay.
Seeing, observing that I'm different from
Well,
the
it's
mind.
Sankhya philosophy, but okay.
From the next step would be training the mind back into a discipline through observation.
Sure, direct the mind to go to Krishna.
So within that training, through shastrical injunctions, we get one is beating the mind with a stick or ignoring it.
Well, that's one methodology. Another is pure devotion.
Knowing the power of the mind is, if in a case it is very strong, can we act like a friend and try to say in a such way?
Sure, but the mind is tricky. Better watch that friend. Don't trust the mind. Read Canto 5, Chapter 6, verses 2 through 5, that says, don't trust the mind. Be careful about making the mind your friend. Mind is tricky. Be careful. You don't want an enemy of the mind, but you don't want to, like, just, la 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 land and trust the mind. He's my friend. The mind is mind has us very bound up in the material world. It's the place where conceptions of life are carried, according to Bhagavad Gita. A material conception of life is what we're ruled by. So don't place trust in your friend, the mind. Place trust in Krishna and bring the mind to the position of subordinate to Krishna. When Krishna says, the mind considers carefully and then says yes. That's good.
One more clarification, if you permit. So, like observing the parents who has a child is very adamant, and then parent becomes extended a little bit of friendship over there, saying instead of 10, they give 5 and take under control.
Yeah. Okay.
So is that allowed to do it?
Yeah,
or?
Sure, certainly. If parents weren't allowed to do it, they have a hard time. Okay, so microphone to the back and then we're done. Can you take to the back?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So there is a set of services that I perform almost every day. Sometimes something is added to it and sometimes something could be removed from it, but there is normally a set of services. So when I try to do the services very mindfully, try to be in the mode of goodness for the pleasure of Krishna, then either of the one happens, that either the time is over or capacity is over and still services are pending so much. So I have observed that unless I do it really quick in the mode of passion,
No.
I can't achieve it.
No.
And I get very frustrated.
No.
How can I balance?
You just got tricked by Maya to think that you have to be like that. That's Maya. Say no to Maya. Say yes to Krishna. Krishna is the ability in man. He's in a woman also. Krishna is the ability. So your ability will come from Krishna, not from the modes of nature. Here's a little Prabhupada story, and I'm going to end with this. But it's just a principle. I've said this story many times. Prabhupada had trained one Mataji in Los Angeles to be the head pujari of Rukmini Dwarkadish. Her name was Shilavati, kind of a celebrity in ISKCON. And very much loved by Prabhupada. And after some time, the Dallas temple opened, and there was deities that were brought to Dallas, Radha Kalachandji. So Prabhupada sent Shilavati from Los Angeles to train the devotees in Dallas how to worship Radha Kalachandji. And then he went to visit after some time, see the Gurukul and etc. So Shilavati asked Prabhupada, can I extend the morning worship by 15 minutes? Because it's difficult for me to finish in the same time that I was doing in Los Angeles, in some reasons. And Prabhupada said, I will show you. Now, you've done deity worship? A little bit?
Yeah, at home.
Okay, at home. But you've done a little bit. So, those that have done a little bit know that when you first start to do deity worship, it takes longer than after you become experienced at it. In St. Louis, we have this really nice brahmachari that does deity worship. He, got second initiation, and he just went on the altar and started doing deity worship. And it took him a long time. Now it's, 20 minutes less now that he's experienced. So Prabhupada came in, hadn't been dressing deities in a long time, certainly had never dressed the deities in Dallas, and he finished the worship and the dressing and the bathing and everything in 15 minutes less than was the earlier schedule. Then he wanted to show Shalava, she was watching him, he wanted to show her that it can be done and how to do it. And then he explained to her later that devotion doesn't mean taking lots of time doing something. When you're very Krishna conscious, you do things very effectively. There's Krishna standing there. Why put him through the difficulty of your messing around with his clothing and jewelry? Do it quickly, with devotion. And not quickly, mode of passion, quickly with devotion. When you're very concentrated in devotion to Krishna, it takes less time to do the same thing than it would be if you did it in passion, without the error of passion and without the dissatisfaction to yourself and Krishna that arises from passion. So it's a matter of the art of Krishna conscious activity. Being devotion from it's the same as the starting point of this evening's talk. The art of mindfulness is pure devotion. Then your mind is more concentrated. Same point as I made in class this morning from our acharyas describing that verse. If Shishupal, remember from this morning? Shishupal was averse to Krishna, and his mind was very fixed on Krishna. More so is one who has love for Krishna. More fixed upon Krishna is one who has love for Krishna than one who has animosity towards him. So, for you, better than the concentration that comes from passion is the concentration that comes from devotion.
Yeah.
Now, we're familiar with the territory of passion. We know how to get things done so-called efficiently, but it's less efficient than in devotion. So we have to learn the art. And you're not going to learn the art by going back to the passion mode. You'll learn the art by practicing the art. That's like this devotee that dressed the deities. Now that he's practiced, he does it in much less time.
So while being mindful of your instruction and practicing like that,
Yes.
I can...
Yes. Within the instruction is the ability to carry out the instruction. Prabhupada's teaching. Okay, we'll end there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhupada ki jai.